Welcome, everybody. Coming back to the Aging and Spirituality podcast, we have Grandma Christine back. She has had a grandson in the last couple of weeks, and everybody's trying to get enough sleep. And if you've ever had a grandson, you know what that's all about. So, yeah. Do you want to say something about your beautiful addition to your family?
Oh, well, it's awesome. It was really quite an experience. I mean,
Yeah.
they bought me this little onesie to put on him that says, "Grandma waited a long time for me."
That's an understatement.
That's the truth. My daughter has, she's older than most people are when they have a baby, and it's been a long time coming. So we're extremely excited. And of course, the challenges are he did come 2 weeks early. So he's a little on the small side, and she's breastfeeding him. And so nobody's sleeping, basically.
Nobody's sleeping. It's taken a village to take care of a little 5-pound baby who is controlling the whole family.
Right.
So
but he is adorable.
It is adorable. Congratulations. It's very exciting. So we're here. We're going to try to stay awake for you. We've got some interesting conversation for you today. I'm actually going to talk about what I call the art of self-surrender, because people talk about surrender in a way that is not what I experience as really practical. They don't really understand what it means to surrender. They often use the word let go as a similar term, but surrender is a very spiritual practice. And so we're going to talk about that, what self-surrender really means. So if you're listening now, you're going to learn why the concept of surrender is critical to any spiritual development. Any real development requires a certain amount of self-surrender. I'm going to talk about 3 crucial ways that help you make surrender a very natural way of your being, so that you don't have to struggle with it and try to work at it. You can really make it a normal flow in the way that you are living in the world. So, and the benefit of that is, if you are allowing the ego to control your life, all the responses to your life, you're going to be living in drama all the time. You have no authenticity because you're not connected to your real source. So the question of whether to learn spiritual surrender or not is yes. There's no really other option. You have to understand this concept if you're on the spiritual path to be able to make progress. So you really need to understand how to tune into that unlimited power that is the source of what created you in the first place. You have to learn how to connect to the soul to know how to create in the world, to learn how to do that. And surrender is all part of that. When you learn to surrender, you actually learn to be in the world in a way that you get what your soul wants easier, faster, and much more in a much grander way than you normally can imagine it. So there are so many benefits to understanding what spiritual self-surrender means. So I'm going to start off with, and I'm going to get to Chris on a question in just a second here. The thing that I want to emphasize about the first point is that you need to understand what surrender is not. So surrender is not about defeat. It's not like you're giving up, or you're being complacent, or you are losing in some way, or collapsing kind of thing. That is not what we're talking about here. Surrender is really giving control to the source of life that has created you. And that control is in the responses that you have to the world, right?
See, that's where I think people get very confused.
Yeah.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about the difference between someone who's codependent, for example,
right,
and someone who's surrendering spiritually.
No, you give an example of that. I don't even know how to do that codependent thing. I mean, and also while you're at it, I wanted to say that one of the quotes that I really love that Patanjali said was, surrender is a passport to Samadhi. I don't know anybody better to talk about Samadhi than you. So talk about what you were just going to say, and then talk about the Samadhi thing.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say, because I know sometimes people, they think, they hear the word surrender and they think, oh, I'm just going to be doing whatever everyone else wants.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah,
Surrendering
like
to
living
somebody
someone
else.
else's life, which is
Right,
kind of
right.
what codependence is. And
Yeah.
actually, spiritual surrender is a tremendously powerful thing, because
Yes.
we're surrendering to the infinite consciousness, the force of life, the power, and the power within you. And so you actually have tremendous power when you surrender. It's getting the ego out of the way, but not
Right.
giving your will over to another person or people
Absolutely.
in any situation.
That's a
And
great distinction.
And I think that's why people get scared when they hear the word surrender.
Right. That is a very important distinction. You're not surrendering to another person.
So
So-
in terms of the passport to Samadhi,
Yeah.
so when we meditate, there are many, many benefits. You feel energized, your mind gets calm, you feel more focused. But for yogis, we want to go much farther than that, because there's so much more that your inner self has to offer you.
Right.
So when you can focus your attention in meditation, and it takes practice, whatever you choose, a meditation practice or object that you like, and you try to keep your attention on it. And when your attention can stay on that object without wandering away for 2 minutes and 38 seconds.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was the exact number. I'm going to write that down. 2 minutes and 38 seconds.
Yes,
Okay.
2 minutes, 38 seconds. That's, the yogis have it down to the second. But the thing is, and that sounds like, well, that's not very long. But when you consider the average attention span is about 6 seconds, it can be an eternity.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing in meditation is we're constantly honing our ability to get to the place where we have mind poise, where our mind is just centered on our meditation practice, and all of our awareness flows there for that 2 minutes and 38 seconds.
Right.
When that happens, then we transcend the everyday mind and all of its bric-a-brac and its tensions. We just go right into an experience of our inner self or our soul, whatever you
deep
want.
experience. Yes.
A very deep experience. You may just experience peace for 20, 30 minutes, but there's nothing, but it's not like you're thinking, oh, I'm feeling peaceful. It's just peace. You just experience it, or love.
Right, right.
Or power or wisdom,
Yeah.
20, 30 minutes the first time, and you come back. The important thing about that experience is you're changed. Some part
Transformation. Wait. That's important. You're saying every time somebody enters Samadhi, they have some form of transformation.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have to accept that. I mean, there's a transformation. We have old habits that keep wanting to take us back. But
okay, there's where I wanted to go, because the next thing I wanted to talk about is that when you start on the spiritual path and start making these deep dips into spirit, the kinks in your life start getting worked out, getting to worked out, right? So you're like I remember the things that came up for me, I was very arrogant. I was very competitive. I was very judgmental. So they were like character flaws that I couldn't not look at. I couldn't get away from the fact that they just didn't seem appropriate on the spiritual path. They were, they needed to be things that I needed to let go of. Yes. So that's what you're saying when you go into Samadhi, there's a transformation. You start to become aware of the things that have to be swept out, let go of, so that you can be more secure on the path. You don't keep getting kicked out by the fact that you're being an arrogant jerk, or you're you're being a judgmental person, because those are not spiritual qualities, right? So it's taking you right out of that energy of what's your source. So that's what you're saying. Am I correct? Okay, good. Good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that really is where I wanted to wrap up this first point, and that is, when you are on the spiritual path, you get to meet all of your flaws and your pain head on. And if you just stay focused on that process, the art of surrendering it, you will learn how to intuitively get to that place of harmony of body, mind, and spirit. Spirit will guide you. you know, you don't need a textbook to take you through this. Spirit, once you're tuning in to the real source, it will guide you on what you uniquely need to do and let go of to be able to stay on the path. That is the journey, right?
Right.
All right, good. So that's the first point. We started at 3:15, right?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I don't talk over. So that was point number one. Number two is the idea of humility. I really wanted to make a point of this because if you're trying to control something from the ego's perspective, you're not going to be humble and you're not going to be guided by spirit. When you first practice yoga, the ego gets very offended. It
Yes.
gets very stirred up, and it wants you to know that it's in control of making the decision and knows what's best for you. And so that's part of the process, is getting good at knowing when the ego is peeking its head in the door and trying to usurp your process. And, you know, there's a lot of ways, and I'm going to ask Chris how to do this. There's a lot of ways to deal with the ego. In my case, I got to a place where I really had to treat it kindly. Like trying to beat it up and yell at it and resist doesn't work. Have to be really kind to the ego, like, you know, like, or neutral, like, okay, I heard what you said. Go away. I don't need you. It's all good. It's all good. I know what I'm doing here, you know, like you don't have to get stirred up. So talk a little bit about how you teach people to deal with their ego.
Yeah, it's very important you don't try to suppress or fight with the ego, because it will, well, it's like anything else, where you try to suppress something, it gets stronger and more powerful, and there's tension.
You give it energy with attention. Exactly.
Yeah, you're giving it more energy. So what you want to do is allow the ego to soften. And a lot of the yoga practices are all about that. It just helps it to soften, to be more open to surrender and to the inner self coming through. And there are, you know, there's one practice in particular that is fantastic for that softening, and which I love. You lie down on the ground on your back, you know, palms up, arms at your sides in Savasana.
Savasana,
Right. And you lie there as if dead for 20 minutes.
Okay.
Not easy to do, because we're always trying to control things. So first time I did this, you may want to, it's a good idea to maybe chant Om, or Om in the name of it, you know, a great being, you know, 10 or 15 times before you start, kind of get you in the mood. But first time I was doing it, I had a real problem with it. And I had to start seeing, I did a visualization of seeing my body be erased, you know, and I was able to get up to here, and I didn't want to erase the rest. But after doing that practice for 20 minutes, if you could do it daily, that's the best. If you can't, you do it as often as you can. But there's phenomenal softening of the ego. Phenomenal softening.
I love that.
And that's where transformation comes in. And, you know, it's just amazing how that happens. So you just the desire to surrender will make a change. But you're right, you don't want to fight with the ego.
But that's like a very good practice for inviting humility in, because the ego wants to control, and it wants to be the winner, and it wants to have praise, and it, you know, wants to say, oh, hey, everybody look at me, I'm better than you, you know, that kind of thing. That's typically how you know you're in the ego, is that kind of thing. But when you're humble, it's not like that. You flow like the earth. You are giving back to the world. You don't have those needs to be recognized, to be, you know, had somebody pet you on the head, that kind of thing. That all goes away. You have a much more I want to say humorous, but I really mean humility, a much more acceptance of who you are as a being on the planet and what your part is in the planet, you know. And part of that is to do no harm, and to be, you know, very grateful for the life that you have. And that is a very important part of learning self-surrender too. So
Humility
Those
opens
are
the
good.
door for transformation. It opens the door,
It
it's
does.
key. It's
It
the key.
absolutely does. Okay, so and then crucial tip number 3, just checking on my time here, we're doing well, is the idea again of letting go and becoming aware of what's happening in any given moment. So the idea of letting go, how is that different from surrender? People often confuse the two things. Let's see. Let me just look at my note for a second. So oftentimes when we know that we need to let go, it's because we're going in a particular direction and it doesn't feel right. So we want to make a shift and turn and go in a different direction. Becoming aware of that situation is the first step in understanding what you need to do to let go. So what that requires of you is really an open mind. If your mind is fixed and determined to be the one that knows what has to happen, you're not going to get the answers that you need. You're going to lose that connection to your inner self, and that process that your soul is trying to guide you through will be thwarted. So become aware of when you're feeling that holding on and that resistance going on, and then let yourself get to a place where you have an open mind and have the option of getting a new answer, a new way of being, a new way of thinking, a new way of acting, anything like that. So it really does require a leap of faith. Surrender is a leap of faith in a lot of ways. So, and you see that a lot in relationships, because if you want to be in a relationship, it's one-on-one, whatever it is, in group situations, you have to really learn to be more tolerant and more forgiving. So those are really creative processes, and they're really unique to who you are and unique to who the person is that you're relating to. But it's not possible to do those without being in some form of self-surrender. So, you're not the dominant one anymore. You are a wave of the big ocean relating to another wave of the big ocean, So funny, I'm at the part where I wanted to talk about what the tip was, and what I have written down is how to let go and soften into the moment. So of course Chris already figured that out way up at the front of the talk here. So let me see if there's something else that we can
There's more. I think you have another idea that's very important.
Well, let me see. What did I say? I said train yourself to be more resilient in stress and have less resistance by being able to say yes to life. That was the tip that I was going to give. This is a great practice. When you're saying yes to life, you're in a place of openness and receptivity. And that relates to our last point there. If you want to make a change and be able to understand how to let go and how to surrender in a certain situation, say yes to everything that comes up. This will give you the kind of openness and receptivity you need to make these subtle shifts as you learn, where you land on the spiritual path along the way. So there you go. That will keep you in touch with your soul transmission, what it's trying to let you know and what it wants you to do. So there we go. Our talk about surrender. Is there anything that came up for you, Chris, that you want to fill in the rest of that?
No, I think your point about saying yes to life is just a very key point, because it's something we can all do. We don't have to do a specific practice for 20 minutes or anything else. It's just something that's we're doing moment to moment. We're saying yes to life.
Absolutely.
And we're not resisting. We're being receptive.
Exactly. And that really ties into that practice you gave us, Savasana and Oming. You're opening yourself up to spiritual contact, to spiritual guidance. Let me know what it is that I need to do. What is my next step? And you're saying yes to it, whatever it is. You're not fighting it off. You're not losing opportunities because you think you know better than the universe.
Right.
That's what surrender is all about. you probably don't know better than the universe.
None of us do.
Yeah, you can do it. It can do it better for you, bigger, better, and all of those wonderful things for you. And those are the great discoveries along the way on the spiritual path, are those bigger and amazing, better things that are waiting for you. So I hope that helps you. If you have questions about self-surrender or your own process, please feel free to get in touch with me at my website, KathyLeeTaylor.com, or Chris at the Yoga Center. Again, in case you haven't heard, we do classes online at the Yoga Center all week long, and they're free. So get on the mailing list, get on the newsletter list, and you will find those. And I promise you, you will benefit for joining them. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. We'll see you again soon.
See you soon. Off
Bye.
to take care of little babies. Bye.
Bye.